I currently have 6 books checked out from the library simultaneously. And I need your help to hold me accountable to finish these books this week. Or I'm going to at least try and finish as many as I can this week. Some of them I only have a few days left on the hold. So you're holding me accountable, and I am going to power through as many of these 6 books as I can in a week. Let me first tell you what 6 I have checked out. I'm going to go in order of how long I have left on the hold. The first book is Willowes by Sylvia Townsend Warner. I have 4 days left on this hold, and I have it checked out on audiobook. And it is only a 4 or maybe 6 hour audiobook, and I've already listened to 20%. So that should be very doable. I'm going to crack that one out, hopefully, in the next couple days. From what I know, this is about a woman in England who kind of goes off and does her own thing despite all expectations of her, which is kind of a vague explanation of a book plot, but I'm kind of letting it happen to me as it happens. I don't want to spoil too much of the plot. And from what I understand, it's also there's some fantastical, whimsical elements. So that one should be interesting. We'll see how the rest of it goes for me. The next book is due in 8 days, and that one is North Continent Ribbon by Ursula Witchner. And I have 8 days to read that one. It's pretty short. I think it's under 200 pages. So I think I should be able to finish that one quite quickly. And I don't know anything about it except that it was nominated for the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize. So it's, I think, sort of sci-fi, maybe fantasy. And it kind of, based on the cover, it looks sort of like solar punk, which is something that is very appealing to me. And I literally know nothing else about it. I just put it on hold, or I think I checked it out immediately. I didn't even have to put it on hold. The next book is Mad Sisters of Essie by Teshan Mehta. And that one I have 9 days on the hold, but I have already started it, and I'm about 8% of the way through, I believe. And it's long. I think it's the longest one I have checked out. So that's why I started it first. So hopefully I can finish it quickly. And there's one person waiting, so I can't renew the hold. So this one, wow. So far, the 8% that I have read, it is about a whale in space that contains rooms that are universes. And there's 2 sisters, and they live inside the whale. And they're going between the different rooms and sort of documenting everything the universe has to offer. And then one of the sisters decides that she wants to leave and see what else is out there outside of the whale. It's definitely giving this sort of spatial feeling that I got from Piranesi by Susanna Clarke, which is one of my all-time favorite books, if not my all-time favorite book. So I'm liking that. And just the sort of unexplainable insanity that's going on. It's very interesting. This one was also nominated for the Ursula K. Le Guin Prize, which is why I put it on hold. I think that one was for this year, and the North Continent Ribbon may have been for a previous year. So far I'm really enjoying the creativity and it just insanity of Mad Sisters of Essie, so I'm hoping I can crack it out quickly. Next up, I have the audiobook for the Ex Hex by Erin Sterling checked out, and that is due in 16 days. Plenty of time to finish that, but I'm hoping to finish it this week. I'm hoping to just be listening to audiobooks at all times of day if I'm not actively reading or working. I don't know exactly what this one is about. I know it's sort of fun fantasy romance, but I think it's modern day fantasy romance. That's literally all I know about it. I was sort of just trying to compile sort of witchy books for the summer because it's hot as hell where I live. You step outside and it's and that's I'm not exaggerating. So I'm trying to do autumn vibes and hoping that cools me off on the inside. So we'll see. So I have that one due in 16 days. The next one I have is The Hacienda by Isabel Canas. And that one is due in 18 days. And it seems to be about basically a haunted hacienda. I have seen it compared to Mexican Gothic which I haven't read, but I've heard is good. So I'm hoping to pick that one up. I'm hoping to read Mad Sisters of Essie, then North Continent Ribbon, and then The Hacienda. And then the final book, which is the first book in the Discworld series by Terry Pratchett, and that one is due in 19 days. And that one I think will be a very, very quick read. So I'm saving that one for last and hoping to like cap off the week with that. This is a lot for me. This will be a big week of reading if I can get all this done. So let's see how that goes. I'm excited about all these. I think they're all going to be good, like varying levels of good, but good nonetheless. And it's very fun for me to have a week where it's basically entirely fantasy or sci-fi. That's very rare for me, but it feels like time. I've read like 6 historical fiction books in a row, and I need a little bit of variety. Without further ado, I will check in when I have finished the first book. Just filmed this clip and I don't know what was going on with my microphone, so I guess I'm starting over. And it's a bummer because I made tea and it was gonna be like a really cozy vibe, and now my tea is cold. It's like cold, and it's not even cold in my house. It's 76 degrees in my house. Why is my tea cold? So anyways, I think I manifested stormy weather when I told you about how hot it was here in my previous clip, because it's been raining ever since. It's been amazing. I guess that's a bit of an exaggeration. It's rained every day. It is still sunny most of the time, and it's still like at least 98 degrees, but at least there's like a little bit of a change in the way the sky looks, because I get really tired of the blue sky, 0 clouds. Okay, anyways, it is now Thursday. Yesterday, Wednesday morning, I completed Lolly Willowes by Sylvia Townsend Warner. This was the audiobook, the first audiobook I was listening to, and I had a great time with it. It is about a British woman in like early 1900s. She's a British woman who had a really close, deep relationship with her father, but when her father passed away, she had to go live in London with her brother and her brother's wife and their 2 kids. And she's not keen on the idea. She's a country girl. She wants to live in the country, but it's a time period where she like literally does not have a choice. So she has to go do that. And then I think it's almost like 20 years later, she decides kind of abruptly that she wants to move out to this small town in the country called, I feel like it's Great Mop. I have a hard time with an audiobook remembering like dates and names of places. I feel like it's Great Mop, but I feel like it might not be. She decides she's gonna go live in Great Mop, and she just kind of leaves her family, fucks off, and then that's like honestly about 50% of the way through the book. So I know it feels like a spoiler, but I don't really know how else to talk about this book without spoiling the plot, because the plot is slow and minimal. So she basically just has a desire to go like live in peace and quiet away from her family in the country, and some zaniness ensues, I will say. I don't know, I don't want to say anything more than that, but there's definitely a fantastical element, but it doesn't come into play until about 70% of the way through the book. Yeah, what else can I say? So I picked this one up because I had just finished The Corner That Held Them by this author, and I really liked it. I feel like she does an excellent job of incorporating in-depth discussions of like women's autonomy and women's rights into these very quiet, simple stories. She does a really good job of that, and she does it with a lot of humor. She is really funny. This book made me laugh out loud. The Corner That Held Them made me laugh out loud. I think she has a great sense of humor. And then she does really fascinating discussions on, like feminism, women's autonomy, and that sort of thing. So I don't want to say too much more about this book, honestly, because it's pretty short. It's not like a big book, and I don't want to spoil things, but there is a fantastical element. She does get up to some shit at the end of the book. Let's just say that. And then the very, very end has just a really, really interesting discussion about womanhood and the oppression of women, especially like British women in this time period. I think I am going to just leave that there though, because I feel like a book that it would be really fun to go in blind, which is what I did. And when things started happening, I was like, okay, wow. So I completed. That was the first of my 6 books, and it's been 3 days. Let's give it a quick rating. Let me think. Enjoyment was high for me, for sure, but the plot is like not very thrilling. So I don't want to give it too high. I think I'm going to give it a 3, like a little bit above average, because it's really funny, and especially near the end, it gets really crazy. But beyond that, it feels like a very typical British book outside of that. And you may not know what I mean by that, but I feel like if you start reading it, you would be like, I do know what she means now. So we're going 3 enjoyment, and then excellence. I think I would give this an excellence of 3 as well. And you'll find that the majority of books I read are a 3 enjoyment excellence, because that's just sort of average. And most books are average, and that's okay. I would say I preferred The Corner That Held Them a lot. I really, really loved that book. And I could see why that might not be a universal experience, because it's very slow. But I just thought the setting was a lot more interesting. The 1300s convent, just as a setting, was really, to me, it captured my attention a lot more than 1900s London, because I feel like that is something I have done before. I've been there, I've done that, I've seen that, But the second half of the book on the countryside did make me absolutely yearn to be out on the countryside of England, just like living a quiet, witchy life in England, which I know everybody yearns for that. That's like not a unique experience. But this book definitely had that vibes in the second half. So I'm going to go with a 3 on enjoyment and excellence. Totally good. If The Corner That Held Them really doesn't sound interesting to you, but you want to check out this author, then this would probably be a better introduction for most people, I would say, because I could see The Corner That Held Them being a little bit more controversial. So I finished that one, and then this morning, just now, I completed The Mad Sisters of Essie by Teshan Mehta. I might be saying that wrong. This author is from India, it seems like. I have no idea how to discuss this book. I will say, because this author is Indian, I do feel like I noticed some parallels to other books that I've read from that region. I think I was feeling a strong resemblance to this sort of just insanity that is the Satanic Verses by Salman Rushdie. They're very different books, but there must be something about the mythology in India that when it leaks into their stories, it's zany. Let's just call it zany. And the other one it was reminding me of was The Seven Moons of Mali Almeida. That's the name of that book, right? Which is a Sri Lankan book, but there was just something about the mythology that felt similar to me. And the other book that it reminds me of is Piranesi. It's right there. By Susanna Clarke, a little bit. Although I would say I do prefer Piranesi, but that's just because that book is an all-time favorite, so it's hard to compete. But I gave a very vague intro to this book at the beginning of this video, and I don't know if I want to give much more of an intro because it's crazy. It's extremely unique. There's nothing like it. I know I just compared it to 3 other books, but truly there is nothing like it. So I would describe it as some sort of blend between science fiction and fantasy. I feel like it leans more fantasy. My fiance and I have this discussion a lot, he thinks a science fiction needs to be science-y to be science fiction, whereas I think books often get classified as science fiction if they literally just have space involved in any way. And this is one of those books that I wouldn't say has any science going on whatsoever, but it does have space as like a setting. So to me, it feels much more fantasy than science fiction. I think at least my household definition of science fiction. And that is just because there is space as a setting. And as I described before, they're in what is known as the Whale of Babel at the beginning. Two sisters who were born in the Whale of Babel, and it's all that they know. And the Whale of Babel is a gigantic whale in space that contains like rooms inside of itself, and each room basically is a world, a whole world. So the scale of it is impossible to imagine, which is why it reminds me of Piranesi a little bit in that way. And then at the very beginning of the book, one of the sisters decides she wants to leave the whale and explore outside, see if there's more to see outside the world. And there is, because outside the whale, it sounds like it's just the universe. So we've kind of got a nested universe situation, you know. And then interspersed, so the story is told from a lot of different perspectives, you know, the two sisters' perspectives, and then there's sort of interspersed is like academic papers sort of exploring some of these wonders of their universe, such as the Whale of Babel. And then there's this other wonder known as the Museum of Collected Memory, which is a location you can enter by doing a specific ritual where you can basically, it's a library of every memory of every person ever. So another infinite space within infinite space. And that the Museum of Collected Memory is made by sound. Don't worry about it. And its source is a mystical planet that nobody has ever seen except for a specific family who was made with the intention of protecting this planet and protecting the Museum of Collected Memory in hopes of the return of the sister of the founder of the Museum of Collected Memory. There's a lot more world building going on also. Most of the book is actually about Essie, which is a planet, which has a festival every 100 years where the whole planet kind of goes mad and nobody knows what that means. And it's a secret that only the people on the planet can experience. And they're very shady about it if you try and ask them. And yeah, the majority of the book, like the bulk of the middle of the book, is about Essie. And it's like a specific story of two sisters on Essie. Listen, I can't explain the plot to you. I'm trying. And so the thing with this book is I think it is extremely creative and incredibly thoughtfully created. Like, you've got to give huge props to this author for just the world she's able to build in this story, and the aesthetics of what she's building is really incredible, and it's difficult to imagine, but she also presents it in such a matter-of-fact way that you feel like you're doing a pretty good job imagining it, if that makes any sense. And it is truly extremely unique, and you have to go into it just down to accept whatever's going to happen, because there's going to be some crazy shit that's happening, and that's okay. And you're not going to fully understand everything until the very end. And even by the very end, there's still some mystery in the universe. And I think that is how it should be. And the sort of like visual sensory experience that it provides for you is really fascinating. And that was what kept me reading for sure. Especially in the middle, the whole section about Essie, I thought got way too long, and I can really appreciate how much effort this author put into the world building that she was doing, because she wasn't just building one world. You know, she's building universes within universes within universes, which is impressive and a lot of work, and I can't imagine what the inside of this author's brain looks like, because it must be incredible. But there definitely was, to me, an exhaustive amount of detail, especially on Essie, that it dragged a little. And that might only be because I'm trying to read 6 books in 1 week, so that's probably mostly on me. I think it's really good. I think I would love for some people to read it, and I would love to talk about it with somebody, because there is a lot to talk about. And I think what my favorite part about it is the sisters, like just sisterhood is a huge theme of the book, and being sisters, and there's sisters all over the place, and every time it like really got to my heart. I don't even have a sister. Doesn't matter. I thought that the sisters were very well done. And I did shed a couple of tears at the end. So, on my enjoyment and excellence scale, wow, this book is complicated. Sometimes I wish I had like a 3 or 4 point system, because a 2-point system still doesn't capture everything that I want to capture. But on the enjoyment side, I think this is an easy 4. After thinking about it, I mean, I read this very fast, considering how truly dense it is in just how much it's trying to accomplish, and like the academic papers and all of the universes it's covering. I was still like very engaged the whole time, and you really want to find out, like, there's so many mysteries at the beginning of this book, and figuring out how everything is connected and how everything works in this universe and what everything means was something that had me like very invested in keeping reading. And you are rooting for these sisters to get back together the whole time, so hard. And then on excellence, I think it was really well written, and I think it takes a lot of skill to be able to describe such enigmatic, impossible to picture things happening just constantly. The whole book is just impossible occurrences, and it's described with a lot of skill, I think. I felt like I could see it the whole time. I think her descriptions were beautiful. There was some lines that were just stunning throughout the book. At times, I did feel it got a little bit tiring because of just like how almost overwrought it was the whole time. So that could be something that would turn some people off of this book for sure. Let me read a couple of quotes to you real quick, actually. I'm looking back, and I highlighted a lot more than I remembered highlighting, so you gotta hand it to this book. It spoke to me on some level for sure. If she ever meets the silent and absent great Wisa, creator and first friend, she would ask her only one question. Why did you make us so small? Here's another one. Being honest with yourself is hard enough. Being honest with someone else is agony. This one I feel like really captures some of the aesthetic of the book. You are both one and many, yourself and your community, your present moment and your past and future. And if you squint on a moonless night and look out of the corner of your eye, you will see them. Everything you were and everything you will be. A sea of ghosts stretching out behind you, even as you live in your skin. The island obliges. It throws open all its doors so that time streams mingle and mix, so that you are carried away on currents beyond you, so that you glimpse, fleetingly, before your mind collapses under the enormity of what you are viewing, the forest of time. I believe that when we read, we are searching for a smooth and polished mirror, so that we may better see our reflections. This is the fascination all narratives hold over us. We are looking for ourselves. I am the right person, just not the same person. It is what happens when you wait for someone to come back to you, or you make a map to go somewhere you once loved. They change. Nothing is ever as you left it. Okay, I think revisiting for some quotes was helpful, and I think I am going to go with a 4-star excellence on this. I think it's a really impressive feat what this author was able to do with this book. What did I say? 4 stars enjoyment, 4 stars excellence? That's actually pretty high praise. It's very, very rare for me to give out a 5-star. So, okay, my final update is I'm almost 50% of the way through the Ex Hex. I listened to it a lot yesterday and this morning. I'm having a good time with it. It's silly. There's some like millennial humor that isn't hitting for me, but it's not like all that often. So overall, I think it's pretty delightful. It's cute. And there's a little bit, my only complaint is the romance has like a little bit too much like lustiness. I love a sort of slow build romance, you know, like a slow build passion instead of like just lust. I'm not convinced these characters like each other for any reason other than having sex with each other, you know? I will give a better review of the plot when I come back for the 100%. I'm honestly very nearly like halfway done with all 6 books, which is great because it's Thursday. I think I have the perfect amount of time, and now I've finished the longest book. So this afternoon I will be starting The North Continent Ribbon by Ursula Witcher. Yeah, Ursula Witcher. I'm very intrigued by this, and it's really short, and it's a collection of short stories. So I feel like I can crack this out in a single day, which is my hope and dream. All right, I'll check back in with you probably with North Continent Ribbon and the Ex Hex completed. Wish me luck. Okay, hello. I'm reporting back, having completed both the Ex Hex and North Continent Ribbon, and it is Friday morning. Friday afternoon. No, it's morning. Doing great. I don't know if I'm going to finish all 6, but 4 is a really good start, and I can hopefully finish one more this weekend, is my plan. Okay, I'm going to start with the Ex Hex. I finished that first this morning. I could just be like, oh, it was fun, I liked it, and move on. But I just have so much to say, and I'm sorry. So the Ex Hex is about a young woman, she's 19 at the beginning of the book, who has just broken up with her boyfriend. They live in Georgia, United States, the state of Georgia, in the United States. She's a witch, and she's just broken up with her boyfriend, and she's really mad, and her heart is broken. So she decides to sort of, in a silly way, like let's do a silly one. They're not serious. Her and her cousin perform a curse ritual and put a curse on her now ex-boyfriend. And they're being silly, but it gets a little serious, and it's a little bit concerning how the curse ritual develops. That's the prologue, and then there's a 9-year time skip where, oh, by the way, this ex-boyfriend of hers, Rhys, is Welsh. So after they broke up, he went straight back to Wales and hasn't come back, and then it's 9 years later, and of course, he's finding himself back in the town where the main girl lives. And when he steps back within the boundaries of the town, the curse takes effect. Obviously the book is about dealing with this curse, figuring out this curse, but it's also a second chance romance between the two main leads, Rhys and the girl, the woman. And I cannot think of her name to save my life. Vivian? I think it's Vivian. I think that this was really cozy. It's really it feels relatively low stakes. I mean, it is a little serious because of the curse, but it's largely relatively low stakes. The vibe in the town is really cozy. It's Halloween time, and everything's witchy, and they're hanging out and drinking tea and wine in these super witchy environments. And I really liked that. It felt so cozy and nice to be hanging out with, especially the female character and her cousin and aunt. They hang out and they have a really cozy, witchy vibe, and I loved that part. I also found the male main character, I found him to be very likable. I listened to the audiobook, and my main complaint about the audiobook is I really wish they had done 2 narrators, one for Vivian's perspective and one for Rhys's perspective, because he's Welsh, and I think that hearing his little Welsh accent on all of his dialogue would have even added more to how much you like him. But it was just the same woman did the whole thing, and she didn't even attempt a Welsh accent, which is probably for the best. But it did kind of make me wish I was hearing a little Welsh man in his parts. So those are the parts I liked about it. And then I did find, I think I mentioned in the previous clip, there was some millennial humor that I found a little bit not funny. And then to get to my primary main complaint, I think that just in general, a second chance romance is a really hard line to walk, because you need to establish a reason why they're not together at the beginning of your story, and it needs to be a good enough reason to have kept them apart, but not so bad of a reason that you don't root for them to get back together, right? It's kind of difficult to walk that line, and I think a lot of times sort of a wrong place, wrong time is a safe bet to do that, And this one, the reason that they broke up at the beginning was because Rhys, was betrothed to another witch, which is just sort of an old tradition. He's got a very traditional father. And so he had been betrothed to someone else, and he didn't tell Vivian when they first started dating, which is fine. that's a decent enough reason to break up, I think, especially because the first time they dated, they were only together for 3 months. But my problem is, as soon as he's back in town, I don't think they ever talk about it. I don't think they ever talk about the betrothal. He obviously didn't marry her, but maybe I missed it because I was listening to an audiobook. You know, sometimes when I'm driving, if there's like something going on, I miss like probably at most a minute at a time when distracted while driving. But as far as I know, they never talked about it. They never talked about the betrothal again. And Vivian just, I guess, assumes from the beginning that he didn't marry her, which means that for the entirety of the book, there's nothing keeping them apart. And they want to be together. There's no like tension whatsoever in the romance. They just want to be together. They just like each other. He's not mad at her for cursing her. She's not mad at him anymore for the betrothal business. So literally most of the book, the thing that's keeping them apart is just like they're busy trying to deal with this curse. And then they get back together, and that's like kind of it. So I'm not sure how well it functions like as a romance specifically. It's a little more spicy than I care for, and I just really don't want to hear an author use the word cock. I don't like that. I really don't like that. I felt personally like they kept talking about how they liked each other outside of sex, but it felt like that was all they ever thought about each other, was wanting to have sex with each other and how good the sex with each other is and just the sex. And as someone who I personally am getting ready to marry my soulmate in September, I just think it changes your perspective a little bit on romance. You're like, these people need a little bit more to connect them than their sex, personally. I felt their chemistry, I felt their sexual chemistry, and I love that for them. But I'm not certain, besides just like their flirtation, I'm not certain I know exactly what they liked about each other. And that's my final complaint, is just sort of in general the characterization I felt was a little bit weak. It kept talking about how different they are, and like that was what, we can't be together, we're too different. And I was like, are you? I don't, in what way? Like, you haven't argued once, you're not fighting, you've never expressed like differences that I know of. Like, I couldn't tell you what their personalities were outside of being witty and playful. And they were like at the very end, this isn't really a spoiler, it was just like, oh, we can't be together because of our different dreams and how different we are. And I was like, I don't know what either of you people, what your dreams are, actually. You have not expressed that. So what's the dream that's holding you apart? I don't know. It seems like your only dream is having sex with each other, so you need to be together for that. That's fine. I don't read contemporary romance like ever, so it might be really harsh, and I'm sorry. It's just not a genre that clicks with me. So anyways, if I were to give it a rating, I think I will give it a full 5 stars on the enjoyment scale. I think I listened to it really fast. I had just a really fun time with it. I thought it was like I said, the sort of environment and the atmosphere was really fun. It's a great autumnal read. Although, personally, I don't think of Georgia as, like, having those autumn vibes. Do they? There's probably parts of Georgia, I'm sure. But I don't know. I just, like, don't picture it as this, like, perfect autumnal landscape. But maybe that's just me. And I thought the plot, like, kept moving at a pretty decent pace. So, enjoyment, a solid 5 for me, I think. And I don't read many 5-star enjoyment books. And there wasn't like, I'm thinking of like an Emily Henry book where they've got some serious trauma and emotional baggage. I don't think either of these people had that much. They could have, maybe if we dove a little deeper inside of them, but neither of them had like trauma they needed to get over to be together or emotional baggage. They were just like two nice people who liked each other a lot, and they wanted to sleep with each other, and they did. And then as for the excellence, I think it had like a certain style of writing that it was going for, that's that very, like, I just want to call it like millennial humor, very like sarcastic and like, oh my gosh, don't mix vodka and magic. I think that's like the first line of the book. Don't mix vodka and magic. Don't talk to me till I've had my coffee, which just isn't like something that doesn't speak to me personally, but that it doesn't necessarily mean it's like straight up bad. So I'm leaning towards a 2.5 on the excellence scale, like completely average, perfectly average, nothing that stands out bad, nothing that stands out good. And I think that probably what's doing a lot of the heavy lifting there is the sort of witchy atmosphere the author was able to evoke with her writing, because I really did appreciate that. So that is the Ex Hex. It was a fun time, nothing spectacular. And I feel like I've heard a lot of really good things about, what is it called? The Irregular Society of Witches? The Society of Irregular Witches. And after reading this, I'm inclined to check that one out because I feel like I've heard more about that one. And if it is sort of similar in the like witchy vibe, I think I would have fun with it. So if you've read either of them, let me know which one's better. And then next up, I finished the North Continent Ribbon by Ursula Witcher. So this is a collection of short stories about a planet, I believe, called oh my god. Jesus. A planet called Nakarat. The specifics of this planet I don't think are very important. I guess I'll start with my major thing is I feel like I was missing something. Like I was supposed to read something before this. Like this was a spin-off, like a collection of short stories for like a main book that I haven't read, and I don't think that's the case, but that is what it felt like I was reading. Like I was missing like the homework that I was supposed to do before picking this book up. It's written in a very obscure way. You are having to really dig to make sense of what is happening at all. So there's this planet. It has continents. There's a North Continent that's mentioned a couple times, and a West Continent that's definitely mentioned. And I don't know if an East or a South Continent are mentioned, but they might be. And this planet has, I don't think it's specifically this planet. It just seems like society has this sort of tradition of braiding or somehow attaching maybe a ribbon to your hair for like where your different loyalties lie. So you would, for a lover, you would have like a ribbon in your hair for that's that color of your lover. And then if you work for a company, which like basically everybody seems to work for a company, you would have like that company's color ribbon in your hair. But then you wear like a head wrapping so nobody can see, so it's like a secret, which is just a bit of world building. I honestly don't think it was like important to the plot at all. It just is sort of the vibe of what the world is like. And then it's a collection of short stories each story's from a different person, from a different like sort of time period, sometimes from a different continent even. And it becomes clear that the world has like some massive companies that are in charge. It's like every time I wear this shirt, I get sneezy. There seems to be massive companies in charge, and they do evil things to make money. And in particular, it is a future in which artificial intelligence has become quite good, such that it can run trains, it can run elevators, it can run the bus, it can run spaceships. Like you have just like a computer in your spaceship that does everything that a pilot would do. However, there is one major issue, and that is that the artificial intelligence cannot make moral decisions. Example that is literally given in the book, which is pretty funny, is the trains, for instance. They're run by a computer, an artificial intelligent computer, but if they end up in a situation where the trolley problem, where it's either do we kill all these people or do we kill a single person, they need a person on board that train to make that decision for you. So if human lives are on the line, a human has to be making the choice about who lives and who dies in order for the companies to have just basically the liability taken care of potentially killing people with their vehicles. I think that's, for the most part, what most of these stories are about, and there was a couple that were mysterious to me what they were about, especially like thinking back to the very first one, I'm like, now what was that about? I think the last 3 were pretty coherent in what they were about. So that was my main complaint, is it felt like the writer had done a ton of work world building, and I am certain that this writer has put in a ton of thought and effort into the world that they built. And they were not interested in making sure that I understood the world building at all. It felt like, because there were many times where I was reading a sentence and I was like, I cannot guess what this means. I highlighted at least one example that I would like to read, and it was a lot of the dialogue, especially where they're speaking in like 10 layers of subtext, but this book is only like 150 pages long, and there's no like upfront effort to do the world building so that you understand how the world works at all. So you're reading their dialogue and you're like, it feels like how I would feel if I walked into like a Fortune 500 shareholder meeting. Like, I wouldn't know what they're talking about because I don't have the context. And that is how it felt listening to a lot of, or I guess reading a lot of the dialogue in this book. And I think partially that's intentional. They are doing this very like corporate jargon thing a lot of the time, which is fair. But a lot of the time you also needed to understand enough to know what's going on in the book, right? So like, here's an example of the sort of corporate jargon that I found really effective. One of the characters says, "I apologize for making a statement of consummate baldness," said the third judge, who never did anything of the sort. "But I must attempt a response to your cogent question. It seems from my perspective, after considering the multitude of factors, that it is imperative we contemplate whether, in the alternative, we are prepared ourselves to fight a war." I think that's a really effective use of this sort of like ridiculous corporate jargon that he's saying so many words while saying, I guess I don't know if he's a he. The corporate jargon of this person saying so many words and saying so little. I thought that was really effective and it made me laugh. Like, that is a very well done version of this. I do have a lot of just like good quotes. There's like very interesting things being said about morality and artificial intelligence and like decision making and algorithmic decision making. I think all that is really interesting. And I saw somewhere that this author is a mathematician, I believe. So I could definitely see that coming through, and I was impressed with that part of the book. But then there's sentences like this. They say, instead of lieutenant, they say lieutenant. I don't know what that's about. Is that like a thing? Or is that just sort of a word that this author made up? I'm not sure, but this sentence I read 45 times. And then I highlighted it because I was like, maybe if I read it out loud for the video, it'll like suddenly click for me. This sentence says, "Lieutenant logic wasn't, as the saying went. Seemed like that still held true the second time around." I don't know what that means. I thought I had highlighted maybe some of the dialogue, but I don't think I did. I highlighted a lot of things I really liked, and there was like a lot of really concise, thoughtful observations about the world in general. So I do really appreciate that. But definitely the book had me feeling like unmoored and wondering like, what is this about, and who are these people, and where are we, and how does this world work? It just sometimes felt like reading dialogue between like aliens, where it was like, what are you people talking about to each other? So I think that was my only complaint, but I think there were really interesting ideas in here, and I would be interested if I'm just in general not a huge short stories fan, so potentially if this author writes something else that's not short story collections and I have more time to like sink into the world building and understand the world building, I think that would be helpful for me. So I'm gonna put my enjoyment, I think, right in the middle, like a 2.5 enjoyment. There were lines that were really funny, there were parts that were really insightful, but I spent a lot of the time just feeling lost and confused, which for me definitely hinders enjoyment. As far as excellence goes, I think I'm leaning towards a 3. It could just be possible this author is like way too smart for me. It's possible. That doesn't happen often. I'm not like trying to brag. I'm just saying I usually can follow a story really well, and I'm pretty good at picking up on how a world works in a book, and this book had me just completely baffled most of the time. And that's coming off of reading The Mad Sisters of Essie, which is an absolutely out there book with insane world building unlike anything else, but I still was tracking what was going on the whole time, which to me is a little bit important in enjoying a story. So I think I'm going to put the excellence at 3. I think it was well written. There were some sentences that I was like, that sentence does not mean anything, though. And I think that at times it seems like this author is too smart to relay information to a normal person. It's like the ideas get too abstract and you lose me a little bit. I still think it is an interesting book. And if you're somebody who's really into like abstract ideas, this book could work for you better than it worked for me. That is my North Continent ribbon wrap up. So I still have the Hacienda and the Color of Magic left on my holds, and I don't know if I'll finish both of them. It's Friday. It's almost like noon on a Friday right now. Not certain I'll finish both of them, but I will do my best. I'm going to read the Hacienda first because it's longer, and I will make it at least my goal to finish that by Monday, and I will check back in with you with that. So it's officially Monday again. It's been 1 full week since I began my quest to complete my 6 library holds in a week, and I don't really have updates from my last check-in. I have completed about a third of the Hacienda by Isabel Canas, and I'm feeling really neutral on it. I thought the first chapter was fantastic. The first chapter was incredible. It was really setting the mood, and then I just feel like after that the other chapters have not been able to keep up the same level of atmosphere as the first chapter. I was really excited by the first chapter and have since been like pretty uninterested. I also, maybe this is TMI, I don't know, Friday I got an IUD and have been really not in the mood to read since then. I definitely took like most of Saturday off just vibing and recovering from the trauma, emotional and physical. So yeah, I hardly did like any reading this weekend, and I think it's just because I was feeling really not that engaged by this book. So overall, I did complete 4 of the 6 books that I had on hold, which is really good. My dog is just walking in circles. Oh my god. So completing 4 out of the 6 is great. It was a good start for me, for sure. And then I got like 3 other books in from the library over the course of the week as well. So I did my best. I think if I had to rank them, I would put Mad Sisters of Essie as my number 1 favorite from the week. I think that one was really, really good. And then probably Willowes second. I did have a lot of fun with that one, especially in the second half. And then I think actually third, I would do the Ex Hex because I did still have a very fun time with that one. Even if it's not, incredible, I thought it was really fun. And I will definitely be checking out more silly little witchy romances. I'm certain that is like a whole genre of its own, and I am intrigued because I had a really good time with that. And I think that puts North Continent Ribbon at last, which feels unfair, but I do think it was the book that I enjoyed the least out of the 4 I read this week. It was a good week of reading. So, and then the Hacienda, I don't know if I'm going to be finishing this book because I'm just not feeling it very much outside of that first chapter. The first chapter was really good. If you see it in a bookstore, pick it up and read the first chapter for sure. I highly recommend the first chapter. And then since then, it's just really not. The atmosphere is very interesting. I'm loving the sort of, they're in Mexico, seems like sort of the Mexico desert I don't know if we're talking like Chihuahua or Sonoran Desert or another desert, but the way it's described feels kind of Sonoran to me. And at the Hacienda, they have a agave farm. They're making pulque, I think. I want to say that's for tequila, or is it its own thing? You have to I'll search. I'll let you know somewhere on screen. But the Hacienda is haunted, and it is very Rebecca coded. The protagonist, Beatrice, she just married Don Rodolfo, who owns the Hacienda San Isidro, and he's a widow. His wife has recently died, and he's remarrying and bringing in Beatrice to be his new wife, and something is afoot with the house for sure. It's like maybe not happy she's here. So it definitely has like creepy vibes, but it also has this sort of like Mexican countryside aesthetic that I do really like. But I'm just not certain this book specifically is for me. And I have another book on hold right now called Salt Bones. I think it's like a Mexican thriller that I think I'm just like a little bit more intrigued by that book specifically. I'm not much of a haunted house enjoyer. Yeah, I feel like I've never read like a haunted house book and been super, super thrilled with it. I love Rebecca, but the house isn't haunted in Rebecca. There's something else going on there that I appreciate more, I think. So, and then of course I just didn't get around to the Terry Pratchett book at all this week, which is okay. I'll definitely read it someday, and I still have quite a bit of time on that hold, so I will definitely get to that one still. Yeah, that's my wrap up for this week. I had a great time. It was very helpful to have you holding me accountable. Thank you for your efforts, keeping me on the straight and narrow on this task. And I am unfortunately just right back where I started, though, with my library holds. It was a valiant effort, and I appreciate that you held me accountable. All right, I'm going to wrap this one up right here. So thank you so much for watching, and let's keep reading.